express them. We do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mackey, Shiny Side Out on Revolution. You're back with David Mackey, Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button and subscribe to the archives for free. Get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, maybe a t-shirt, a mug, or anything you like. Thanks for listening to Revolution Radio, and we know that this is episode 687. We're talking about mind control. This is part 10 in the series. So if you are catching this one for the first time, don't fret. There's 9 others. They're in chronological order. And that should allow you to catch up. Once we have finished, Mackie, of the series, I put it into a playlist so that it's much easier to consume, and we split it into news for the first hour and show for the second hour so that we can do that playlist and make it really easy for you to be able to consume. So also we ask as a favor, if you can, do like, subscribe, comment, and share our videos. I want to see everyone. We just have to get our followers up if we can. Commenting helps the algorithm automatically place it for the right kind of audience. That helps us greatly. We also have ShinySoundOut.net, I think, .au, which is a website that we have for ourselves. And today, Mackie, we're talking about mind control. This is part 10 in the series. And it's show number 687.
780 and 600.
That's what.
Very close to a to a show arc. Very, very close.
To winning. Yeah, it's really close to winning. And Mickey, I just want to say this also, that we have our own merch, which is co-branded, Shiny Side Out. If you want to look cool, at work, have an SSO mug, the big 20-ounce one. That's a fantastic coffee mug. It's also good for soup. If you like instant soup or something like that, or just, on a nice winter's day. But the hoodie, I recommend the hoodie. It's like Hanes. It's really high quality SSO merch. I know a lot of people do merch drops. Ours, I created them a long time ago, and they're all co-branded with Revolution Radio. So do try and pick something up there. It does help us. It does go to us, the commission on the sale of it. So if you can help us, that'd be great. Anyway, Mackie. Anyway. Anywho. I nearly said it. We're up to Associated Press article from Database Search, Study Cities Soviet Progress on Mind Weapons.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to put the middle screen up. I got a compliment the other day that while we're reading it, for them to see why it's so complicated to understand what we've said, because we're reading from text which has been recovered the best it can with an optical character recognition from a poorly photographed, photocopied, scanned document with redactions. So it is the best we're ever going to get. We can't ever get back to the original documents. So this is in relation to, the body says, the Associated Press. The materials in the Associated Press file were compiled by the Associated Press. These materials were not republished without the express written consent of the Associated Press. This is from November 6, 1983, and it says, Washington Dateline. Study cites Soviet Progress on Mind Weapons by Barton Reppert, Associated Press writer in Washington. The Soviet Union has achieved significant progress toward developing mind control weapons, according to a US Army study disclosed in a new book focusing on military uses of psychic phenomena. Author Martin Ebon contends that mind-altering effects or remote monitoring of brainwave activity are among possible reasons behind the Soviet microwave bombardment of the US Embassy in Moscow. Soviet scientists view the brain as an apparatus available for probing and manipulation, Ebon says. Quote, they are well aware that perfected techniques in ESP and other phenomena make effective wartime strategies, unquote. Publication of Ebon's book, Psychic Warfare, Threat or Illusion, comes amid increase in parapsychology research on Capitol Hill as well as within the Pentagon and US intelligence agencies. A report prepared recently by the Congressional Research Service, an arm of the Library of Congress, concluded that psi phenomena could be applied in fields such as education, medicine, geological exploration, that's kind of remote viewing, and business management. Mind control techniques also prove useful for military intelligence and police work, along with crime, persuasion, mischief, and disinformation, it's said. Psi phenomena include various forms of extrasensory perception, for example, telepathy and remote viewing of distant locations. Another form is psychokinesis, the ability to move or bend solid objects with the mind. Critics of parapsychology, however, charge that much of the research on those effects is either scientifically unsound or fraudulent. Other skeptics argue that even if the phenomena exist, they are too weak and unpredictable to have any, I added the word any, military value. Congressional supporters of psi research include Senator Claiborne Pell, I don't know what that is, DRI, ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He said that he had discussed the parapsychology field with Soviet researchers during a visit to the Soviet Union in August. I personally, says the author, he says, have never experienced or seen a psychic event, Pell said in a recent interview. But it seems to me that there have been adequate scientific articles written that would indicate that they do occur. The 1981 Army study, quoted at length in Ebon's book, analysed the potential impact of psychic warfare tactics, as well as other battlefield factors on the stamina and performance of US artillery forces. It used the word psychotronics to describe the project or transmission of mental energy by individual or collective mental discipline and control, or by an energy-emitting device, kind of mind jammer. Mekki.
The report cites the significant amount of research that has been completed by Warsaw Pact countries. Now, Warsaw Pact is what used to be the equivalent of the East to the NATO alliance. Okay, so it no longer exists. It went down in flames together with the Berlin Wall back in the 90s. But so our listeners that might not be up with that, the Warsaw Pact was the Soviet alliance of country to counter NATO. Now, so Warsaw Pact countries during the past decade in the area of psychic phenomena, of which psychotronics is one element. The Soviet Union in particular appears to have made significant progress towards developing psychotronic weapons, said the Army study entitled Fire Support Mission Area Analysis. To counter that potential threat, it said the United States should develop special defensive tactics and begin to explore the use of its own mind control weapons. The CIA scaled down its involvement with psychic research during the mid-1970s, when the agency was under intense criticism and scrutiny on Capitol Hill. But a U.S. government official familiar with the parapsychology field, who spoke on the condition that he not be identified, said that currently there seems to be somewhat renewed interest at the CIA in psi phenomena, particularly psychokinetic metal bending. Pentagon units said to be interested in psychic research include the Defense Intelligence Agency and Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, which is DARPA. Pell had a delegation of 9 Senate Democrats who met with President Yuri Andropov and other Kremlin officials during the August 17 to 21 visit to Moscow. In his private discussions with Soviet parapsychologists, Pell said he had been unable to get a firm handle on the overall scope of scientific resources Moscow is devoting to this area. He goes on to say, I was just there for too short a time to go into anything in any depth. The senator said he had been particularly impressed by psychokinesis and remote viewing research being conducted by Robert G. Jahn, Dean of the School of Engineering Applied Science at Princeton University. Jahn's laboratory has carried out an intensive series of about 300 remote perception trials over geographical distances of up to 11,000 miles. Also, the Princeton researchers are studying possible psychokinetic effects on batches of 9,000 plastic spheres tumbling through a random mechanical, the word is not readable, I want to say apparatus at this point. The Congressional Research Service report said Soviet annual spending on psi research has been speculated to amount to tens of millions of dollars. By contrast, total funding for parapsychology studies in the United States probably does not greatly exceed $500,000 a year currently, with most of the money, coming from foundations and other private sources, it said. The study, prepared by Christopher H. Dodge of CRS's Science Policy Research Division, said recent experimental results suggest that some mind control phenomena can be repeated fairly reliably, if less than ideally, under controlled conditions. The CRS report was criticized by Paul Kurtz, chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, a group which is skeptical about parapsychology. And I'm quoting here, in no sense is this an adequate account of the status of research because the whole parapsychological area is rife with controversy, said Kurtz, a philosophy professor at the State University of New York at Buffalo. He said that this particularly focuses on the issue of replication. It's very difficult to find experiments in which you get results in other laboratories. It's very elusive. Eben, a New York-based professional writer specializing in Soviet affairs, asserted in his book that there was already considerable circumstantial evidence pointing to the Soviet KGB's unorthodox use of electronic means in an effort to influence human behavior. Speculation over possible purposes behind the Soviet microwave bombardment of the Moscow embassy, believed to have begun as early as 1953, has centered largely on use of the beams for eavesdropping or to try to jam U.S. electronic intelligence gathering equipment. However, Eben said that another hypothesis is that Soviet use of radiation to effect mind changes in embassy personnel. An additional possibility, he wrote, is that the beams may have been used to read minds, in inverted commas, by tuning microwaves to the level of brainwaves. Approved for release August 10, 2000. Now, this was written originally in 1983. 1983.
That's when I was in California.
And this document was created, the one Dave and I have accessed here, was created November 4, 2016. So this is actually, as far as photostating is concerned, this is one of the better ones. Not too many missing things in there, but there's some out there which are just shocking. All right, my friend, that brings us, I think, to the last or second last FYA article.
So this is
third last, sorry.
CIA conducted mind control test up to 72. New data shows. Let me have a look. Creation date of the document was 2016. Document release date 2004. That's right. Took them a while. The publication date was 1977. I've already put the link into the chat, so chat if you want to have a look at that while we're reading it, it'd be fine. So this was approved for release in 2005. Washington Post, September 1977, by Bill Richards. Something weeks ago by CIA researchers during earlier mind control operation Code something. John Jacobs, a routine review of inactive records, named, I'm going to guess that's MK Ultra, which began in Washington. Poet staff writers. The boxes contain records of US 1950 and tapered off in the mid-1960s. Documents which show that it's something services in 1943. The CIA spokesman, probably involved in chemical and biological ex-cal and biological mind control experiments, said the OSS was the CIA's pre-experiments or something. The experimentation was on human subjects. Predecessor? Yeah, that'll do. Mm-hmm. The experimentation was, it says, meant on human subjects were farmed out to various private conducted as late as mid-1972. They also contain detailed opera searchers who were under instruction, files on chemical and biological shuns to explain the subjects. What they CIA Director Stanfield Turner has maintained that the only sketchy phi experimentation run from 1949 until we're receiving the CIA spokesman the mid-1950s under the CIA's code said. Now, I'm going to tell you that's extremely difficult to read.
It is.
And we don't know how many, what we'd actually really said in the beginning. But this is what the OCR and the document release says.
Yeah.
And I've got it on screen so people can read along with me and understand just how difficult this is. But if you're hearing this on radio, we're reading it word for word and doing the best to determine when a word is not complete, what it should be. All right, so spokesman called financial records left in the CIA's files names Bluebird and Artichoke, because they'd be code names or project code names. Subsearch, a sanitized version, is on its mind control. Projects showed, probably projects of the experiments included CIA earlier MK Ultra Operation Human Experimentation was discontinued. Something personnel who were aware of the ex-Turner publicly deplored the something in 1964 experiments, and foreigners who may man experimentation aspects of that'd be MK. The newly discovered files 14 fold not have been, according to the CIA Ultra last month, full records on ERS with about 700 pages of financial. The CIA spokesman said he was not the CIA mind control programs were records indicate that human subjects aware if the Bluebird artichoke document probably destroyed by Gottlieb just before he were experimented on, missing text, with their ments, which are still classified retired 1973 according to the secret knowledge under the CIA's project, showed any experimentation on Priz testimony by Gottlieb to the Senate.
I know. Sorry, Dave. I know what happened.
What?
I've opened the PDF.
Yep.
And there are 3 columns in the article.
Oh, don't.
And what the OCR has done, it's read them across.
Oh, across and rather than in columns.
So
right.
don't. I'm going to read here from the PDF.
Oh, please do.
I'm going to take it. Yeah, I'm going to because this PDF is actually relatively readable. So let me do that because the text makes no sense. I'm happy to show. Well, yeah, follow the link.
I have that open now on my screen. So
okay,
that makes sense.
Good. Yeah. So
you can read it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So look, I'm just gonna go the blah blah blah. Let's take it from the top.
Turn the top. Let's go.
The CIA has uncovered thousands of lost documents which show that its chemical and biological mind control experiments on human objects were conducted as late as the mid-1972s. CIA Director Stansfield Turner has maintained that the only sketchy financial records left in the CIA files on its mind control projects showed human experimentation was continued in 1964. You see how they all jumbled it all together?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. OCR is just ridiculous. The newly discovered files, 14 folders with about 700 pages of financial records, indicate that human subjects were experimented on with their knowledge under the CIA's project MK Search until the project was halted by the CIA Technical Services Director Sidney Gottlieb on July 10, 1972. The CIA spokesman acknowledged yesterday that the MK Search files had been located among budget material. The spokesman also said 14 boxes of additional detailed intelligence files were stumbled upon several weeks ago by CIA researchers during a routine review of inactive records. The boxes contain records of U.S. intelligence operations going back to the days of the Office of Strategic Services in 1943. The CIO spokesperson said, of course, OSS was the pre-runner of the CIA. They also contain detailed operational files on chemical and biological experimentation run from 1949 until the mid-1950s under the CIA's code names Bluebird and Artichoke. Subjects of the experiments included CIA personnel who were aware of the experiments and foreigners who may not have been according to the CIA. Are you looking at the same text, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. The CIA spokesman said that he was not aware if the Bluebird Artichoke documents, which are still classified, showed any experimentation on prisoners of war captured in Korea. North Korean officials accused the United States in 1951 of conducting bacteriological experimentation on captured POWs at Koja Island prison of South Korea. U.S. officials emphatically denied the charges. Dave?
Yeah, so the MK search files were described by the CIA as skimpy. The project was the CIA's successor to an earlier mind control operation codenamed MK Ultra, which began in 1950 and tapered off in the mid-1960s. In MK Search, volunteers, some of them paid, were apparently involved in chemical and biological experiments. The experimentation was farmed out to various private researchers who were under instructions to explain to subjects what they were receiving. The CIA spokesman said the spokesman called MK Search a sanitized version of the earlier MK Ultra operations. Turner publicly deplored the human experimentation aspects of MK Ultra last month, according to the article's publication date. Full records on the CIA mind control programs were destroyed by Gottlieb just before he retired in 1973, according to the secret testimony by Gottlieb to the Senate Intelligence Committee last year. During that testimony, Gottlieb insisted he had forgotten most of the details of the programs. According to the CIA's spokesman, the newly discovered files were overlooked during previous searches, described by Turner and others in the CIA as thorough because of the agency's poor filing system. The system was screwed up, the CIA spokesman said. We didn't find the old files because, well, all earlier records were compartmentalized and we looked in the wrong compartment. He said it was possible that additional records on the agency's drug and mind control experiments may still be discovered. In a related document, Johns Hopkins University said yesterday that it was among 86 private institutions involved in MKUltra. An unnamed chemistry professor was paid from 1964 to 1966 by the CIA to develop allergens for the agency under project titled Harassment by the Intelligence Agency. That concludes the document.
That's it. Now, the next one is... Sorry, the next one makes no sense at all. I'm looking at the PDF, Dave.
Oh, yes.
And I'm looking at the text. And it's just... I can see the beginning of the article, but that's not the beginning of our documents. It says the body here, 2/3. Now, 2/3 is there, but it's not where the article starts. Because it makes no sense to start from there. The actual article starts with Washington, the Russian government is perfecting mind control technology developed in the 1970s. Look. Here we go. I know.
The second half of the screen. So U.S. explores Russian mind control technology is the beginning of the story.
That's correct. And then it goes to, I want to say,
from page 4. So that goes to the next bit. Control.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and I think then we go to the top. 2/3 reduction is great. I think this is what the last one is, or maybe not. Actually, maybe that. Hang on. No, that has nothing to do. Okay, 2/3 reduction is great. Has nothing. Okay. So, all right, you're right. So US explores mind control. So I'm looking at the PDF.
Yes.
Right? And at the top of the PDF, in accordance to our document,
correct,
it says
yes.
2/3 reduction. That's a different article.
That is a different article.
Our
not
article starts.
By Barbara.
It starts
Opel.
with Washington.
That's right.
Washington. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly where it starts. Blah blah blah. Start. Yeah, see, start 11. Okay, here we go. The rest is actually nonsense. It is a different article. So we can read either the PDF, which is actually quite readable, this one, or we read the OCR, but the first part is so up to you. What do you want to do? Should we read?
I think the PDF. Let's go with the PDF.
Okay, PDF it is. All right, so this is US explores Russian mind control technology by Barbara Opel, Defense News staff writer, and this is the Defense News. That's the name of the publication, as far as I can ascertain here. Yes, it is. And Washington. The Russian government is perfecting mind control technology developed in the 1970s that could be used to hone fighting capabilities of friendly forces while demoralizing and disabling opposing troops. Always wondered about the Iraq War, the first one. Known as acoustic psychocorrection, the capability to control minds and alter behavior of civilians and soldiers may soon be shared with U.S. military, medical, and political officials, according to U.S. and Russian sources. The sources say the Russian government, in the spirit of improved U.S.-Russian relations, is beginning to lift the veil of secrecy surrounding the technology. The Russian capability, demonstrated in a series of laboratory experiments dating back to the mid-1970s, could be used to suppress riots, control dissidents, demoralize or disable opposing forces, and enhance the performance of friendly special operations teams, sources say. Pioneered by the government-funded Department of Psychocorrection, oh my God, that's gold, at the Moscow Medical Academy, acoustic psychocorrection involves the transmission of specific commands via static or white noise bands into the human subconscious without upsetting other intellectual functions. Experts said laboratory demonstrations have shown encouraging results after exposure of less than 1 minute. Encouraging, yay! Moreover, decades of research and investment of untold millions of rubles in the process of psychocorrection has produced the ability to alter behavior on willing and unwilling subjects, the experts add. In an effort to restrict potential misuse, I'm sorry. In an effort, let me say this again. In an effort to restrict potential misuse of this capability, Russian senior research scientists, diplomats, military officers, and officials of the Russian Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology Policy are beginning to provide limited demonstrations for their US counterparts. Sorry, before I go on. Any use of this would be misuse.
That's right.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I was going to say this here. Any attempt to mind control would be a misuse. And anyway, here we go. Further evaluations of key technologies in the United States are being planned, as are discussions aimed at creating a framework for bringing the issue under bilateral and multilateral controls, US and Russian sources said. An updated paper by the PSYCOR, it's actually PSYCOR Center, a Moscow-based group affiliated with the Department of Psychocorrection at the Moscow Medical Academy, acknowledges the potential danger of this capability. The Russian experts, there we go, including George Kotov, a former KGB general now serving in the senior government ministry, present in their report a list of software and hardware associated with their psychocorrection program that could be procured for as little as $80,000. Dave?
As far as it has become possible to probe and correct psychic contents of human beings despite their will and consciousness by instrumental means, results having been achieved can get out of our, in brackets, control and be used with inhumane purposes of manipulating psyche, the paper states. The Russian authors note that world opinion is not ready for dealing with appropriately with the problems coming from the possibility of direct access to the human mind. Therefore, the Russian authors have proposed a bilateral center for psychotechnologies where US and Russian authorities could monitor and restrict the emerging capabilities. Janet Morris of the Global Strategy Council, a Washington-based think tank established by Ray Klein, former Central Intelligence Agency Deputy Director, is a key US liaison between Russian and US officials. In a December 15th interview, Morris said she and the Richmond VA, Vancouver-based VA, International Healthline Corp, has briefed senior US intelligence and army officials about the Russian capabilities, which Morris said could include handheld devices for purposes of special operations, crowd control, and anti-personnel actions. Healthline Corp, there's an oxymoron, is evaluating Russian healthcare technologies and will underwrite Russian demonstrations in the United States. We talked about using this to screen and prepare special operations personnel for extremely difficult missions and ways in which this could be integrated into doctrine for psychological operations, Morris said. She said Army officials were concerned about the capability being directed against armoured systems and personnel through electronic communication links. Ground troops, she said, risk exposure to bone-conducting sound waves that cannot be offset by earplugs or other current protective gear. Morris added that US countermeasures could include sound cancellation and complex processes that involve broadcasting oppositely phased waveforms in precisely matched frequencies. That's what we know today to be noise control, or what's the other one? It's a I forget what it's called. Noise cancelling. Major Pete Keating, a U.S. Army spokesman, said senior Army officials had expressed interest in reviewing Russian capabilities, but that repeated plans to schedule visits to former Soviet Union were rejected by Donald Atwood, Deputy Secretary of Defense. Keating said he was unfamiliar with the mind control technology and could not discuss specific details. US sources said government officials and leaders from the business and medical communities will consider Russian offers to place the mind control capability under bilateral controls. At least one senior US senator, government intelligence officers or officials, and the US Army Office for Operations, Plans and Force Development are interested in reviewing the Russian capabilities, US sources said. In addition, International Health Line Corp is planning to bring a team of Russian specialists here into the US within the next couple of months to demonstrate the capability. Company President Jim Hovers said in a December 2nd interview. Meki.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Army's Armament Research Development and Engineering Center is conducting a one-year study of acoustic beam technology that may mirror some of the effects reported by the Russians. Army spokesman Bill Harris said December 3rd the command awarded the one-year study contract to Scientific Applications and Research Associates of Huntington Beach, California. Related research is being conducted at the Moscow-based Andreev Institute, U.S. and Russian sources said. Despite the growing interest in a capability traditionally reserved for science fiction novels and cinema, industry and academic experts are cautious and skeptical about its potential battlefield use. And I'm quoting here, "This is not something that strikes me as requiring high-level attention," Raymond Gardhoff, a defense and intelligence analyst at the Washington-based Brookings Institution, said in a December 2nd interview. Morris contends that the capability has been demonstrated in the laboratory in Russia and should be placed under international restrictions at the earliest possible opportunity, something I completely agree with, by the way. And just to be clear, this article was in fact written in 1993 and was freed for release in 2000, and this document was created in 2016. The next one is a very short one, Dave. I think it makes a lot more sense to read it from the PDF.
That's what I'm doing.
Perfect. So this is actually a radio, I guess like a transcript of a 60 minutes episode that aired December 23rd, 1984. Go ahead.
Excellent. It says Ed Bradley, MK Ultra is not the name of a new James Bond movie. It is, or was, the code word for a secret CIA project which took place between 1953 and 1964, in which unsuspecting people were used in mind control experiments that left them emotionally crippled for life. MKUltra consisted of more than 130 research programs which took place in prisons, hospitals, and universities all over the United States. Tonight, we'll look at Subproject number 68, an experiment conducted in Canada. The CIA does not deny that the experiment took place. In fact, we'll show you an internal agency memo which admits their involvement. The rationale for all of this? Well, the memo doesn't say, but it's apparent that learning how to make people do things they normally wouldn't do by controlling their minds is valuable if you're in the espionage business. Dr. Ewan Cameron, an American, now dead, headed the Allen Memorial Institute at the McGill University in Montreal, Canada, where the experiments took place. Dr. Cameron never told his patients they were being used as guinea pigs. Zal Orolico says, I can't get over the rage that I feel that he would have done this to me and to other people. Blah, blah, blah. Bradley then says in 1957, Zal Orolico was suffering from depression. It was recommended that she see Dr. Cameron, who was one of the leading psychiatrists in Canada. Her treatment from Dr. Cameron, massive doses of lysergic acid diethylamide, a new drug called LSD.
And the last bit there is it destroyed her, and that's all we have of the transcript. Only one page released. Clearly, the show is called 60 Minutes.
That's right.
Oh, this is what? 2 or 3 minutes of talking, if that?
Yeah, it's the intro.
Yeah, so that's all we have. We don't have the rest of it, which is unfortunate. The next bit was a very interesting kind of thing. It was a little treatise I came across while researching this topic. And this is from Fordham University, Fordham Research Commons, senior thesis, international studies, spring of April-May 21st, 2022. And it's called the whole thesis. This is a PhD thesis. It's called A General History and Theory of Mind Control, Information Design, Commercial Truth, and the Disinformation Crisis Design, and Crisis Design. That's right. Okay, this is by Gabriel Isaiah Samant, and I'm only reproducing the concluding thoughts here, but obviously I encourage everybody to read the entire thing if you are so inclined. Let me just get rid of something here. There you go. Actually, don't worry about it. I'll do that later. Concluding thoughts. So there's a whole paper that goes before that, and the link we can share. And the concluding thoughts are fairly long, so I'm going to share it with Dave. The path to peace after these dark years of psychological warfare is not an impossibility. The stories we believe about history influence the way we perceive the institutions and associations that shape civil society. The myths we spell out for each other about our nation inform our sense of duty, justice, and morality. Let us tell a true story about one of the darkest and most confusing times in our country's history. The history of mind control is a story of the subtle, slow erosion of the legal rights and individual psychological freedom following the end of World War II and into the first 3 decades of the 21st century. Secret laboratory experiments, international coups, and naval information warfare make for the most exciting stories, but the bulk of this history was told by fear-based propaganda and the imagined into existence tools of brainwashing that were directed towards social consciousness in modernized societies in a concerted effort to indoctrinate individuals into national state formations capable of triumphing in warfare over others. The rights of free citizens were trampled for decades by several shadowy government agencies working under the umbrella of national security, allying themselves with former Nazis and rogue scientists who pioneered nearly every aspect of modern psychological warfare. In our conceptualization of written history, we may be tempted to name this era the managerial period, where political and economic actors strategically withheld knowledge and information to become the masters of consciousness and economic forecasting through mass media that deconstructed common knowledge and constructed popular ideals. This is the history of the nation state in the years following the modern era. During the colonial mercantile period, bookended by the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, through the conclusion of World War II in 1948. National statehood following the end of World War II meant the adaptation of the most powerful self-governing status, both capitalist and socialist, into global propaganda-producing behemoths. After 9/11, this issue was further compounded by mass data collection and the predictive capability of state security agencies in order to stop future terror attacks. It was during this time that misinformation became a particularly potent weapon to throw American intelligence off the trail of genuine threats, as intelligence analysts were on hyper alert for any sort of potential follow-up attack in a similar pattern to the plane hijacking tactics during the September attacks. These tactics of data collection and behavioral prediction proliferated to the international stage as the US shared this technology with its allies. I wonder if that's true. Particularly Israel, whose geostrategic location made it useful in deciphering the stories that can be told from patterns and data. Of course, by now these tools, which have been in use for more than 20 years, have been mimicked, stolen, or otherwise perfected by dictatorial and neo-fascist state security agencies. All the while, the United States has kept its ideological allies, such as the European states, well, not anymore, at arm's length, even going so far as to turn this surveillance technology on other foreign leaders under both the Obama and Trump administrations in order to get an edge on critical conversations about state priorities. Unfortunately, this decades-long focus on espionage and technologically advanced physical warfare and not cyber informational or psychological warfare has landed our country, this is the US he's talking about, in a particularly violent security dilemma. The current crisis of mind control weapons being used at scale on American citizens. Despite attempts on part of state intelligence agencies to find a genuine scientific understanding of the phenomenon of mind control through fantastical exploits such as LSD, sensory deprivation, electroshock torture, etc., the economic nationalist state formation of societies, what we commonly call the Cold War between capitalism and communism, did not become genuine mind control until two more historical conditions were fulfilled. First, the development and evolution of mathematical tools capable of estimating individual consciousness, a trend that evolved out of the security concerns following 9/11. And second, the untraceable deployment of individualized propaganda derived from those mathematical estimations by political actors who sought to undermine free thinking. Dave?
In terms of other unanswered questions, there is also considerable concern amongst data psychologists that the 2016 Brexit campaign and the 2014 Russian invasion of Ukraine were political events engineered by untraceable, personalized propaganda. What this paper can reasonably conclude is the following. We should be mindful of the growing proportion of time we have spent online or connected to a smart device over the last 2 decades and how this has affected our perception of reality. To avoid an all-out World War III or a second American Civil War, it may be necessary to quickly adopt postmodern frameworks of seeing the world, giving room for intelligent and, civically engaged social debates about issues of scale, exponentiality, complexity, memory, and formation of ideas. If we are considering questions of value, theory, and praxis, we may feel tempted to draw the conclusion that people like Adolf Hitler and Osama bin Laden, who sought to destroy free society through the values of fear, control, and paranoia, were successful in spreading their mission by imparting such values onto American managerial capitalism and state intelligence practices. We should look critically at the evolution of this historical trend through the particularly pernicious lens of information, marketing, and other various ways in which we have popularized commercial truths. Google it, watch a YouTube video, educate yourself on Instagram, keep up with the news on Twitter. Research and education are not political ads. They are not websites. They are not hashtags. While we can surely learn things from those spaces and utilize them to spread certain opinions in public sphere, we must also understand that the internet, as it currently exists, is not public space. Access to the metaverse of information in the Web 2.0 era is almost always arbitrated by companies or other incorporated entities who collect data on your online behavior, such as a university, a government agency, or a non-profit, non-governmental organization. That data is history. Everything else we have ever been told about the path is mythology told through the psychological lens of individuals with their own biases, agendas, hopes, and perspectives. As an individual, I, the author of this document, of course, have an interest in convincing people that research and education work this way. If I did not, then I would have never attended an academic institution and learned the skills of scholarship in order to propose a thesis. We have spent time here as author and audience investigating these questions and rationally dissecting thoughts in our experience. The work is far from complete. Academic knowledge operates on the assumption that rational, slow, and deliberate research can challenge the claims made in this paper. Such counter-research is welcomed so long as it remains in the interest of transparency, good faith, and knowledge. The opposite, which may very well occur as a result of the author publishing of these arguments, is a media campaign designed to erode trust and adapt the content discussed here to support baseless digital myths that promote violence. The real world and the alternative world invented on the internet are at war. Using the internet with the knowledge in this paper, we can think critically instead of listening to whatever lies makes us happiest. Though I would challenge the notion that any of us were sustainably happy before beginning this investigation, especially any reader who has been deeply and personally distressed by this new knowledge. Mekki.
Research and education are formal, established theories of reason that require indoctrination into a science-based methodology of rationality, instruction, and critical thinking. And one I think we need to overhaul. That's my opinion. Back to the text. While learning, obviously, happens outside the classroom or library, and easy access to the internet can teach us many things, we should be hesitant to view any information we obtain for free as knowledge. In a world where the most profitable businesses on earth make their money by scanning your psychological habits, free information obtained online is at best only ever an attempt to collect information on you and what you believe. And I would have put in more information on you and what you believe. Mm-hmm. As we've seen in this paper, free information is also frequently disseminated to harm people and erode society. As a statement of transparency, the information you have obtained by reading thus far was not free. I assumed a great deal of student debt to bring you this knowledge. So this is the author speaking, of course, right? So again, this is his doctoral thesis. Even then, we must be critical and aware of the theories that permeate our experiences, even when we have paid into a system of knowledge or proactivity. Their criticism should come from a place of genuine concern for sustainable happiness and the minimization of suffering, a field of psychology that has also benefited from decades of research, education, and formalized knowledge. By the very nature of abstract theorization, all of what you've just read is only that, a theory based on observations. By the nature of those observations being mine, what I have written for you here is only my opinion. I am hopeful that such an opinion will be adopted, analyzed, criticized, and refined by others over time, consistent with the scientific method and the pursuit of international standards of truth, freedom, and peace. I do not pretend that this dry, long, and difficult thesis is an absolute, undeniable record of events, but I do propose that we think more broadly about what sort of absolute, undeniable records are out there, what tools we have unleashed to record and analyze the day-to-day lives of billions of people, and how those tools can be used by those in power. Orwell, a socialist, believed in the fate of the free world and declared that the huge, invincible, everlasting slave empire of which James Burnham appears to dream will not be established, or, if established, will not endure because slavery is no longer a stable basis for human society. End quote. James Burnham, a conservative American scholar and theorist who rejected the promises of Marxism, came to fear that managerial capitalism, if technology advanced enough, would become an inescapable black hole for the promises of freedom and liberty. George Orwell was wrong. James Burnham was right. The emergence of techno-psychological empires has been successfully established. Will the world allow them to endure?
I don't know, Mecky, but that's the end of the show. We're going to catch you. You did it. Tuesday and Thursday, 7 a.m. for breakfast with Dave and Mecky and Plato's Cave. And again next week. Do like, subscribe, and everything that we ask you to do. And Mecky, what else can we do?
Be safe!
Be safe.